She said it across the table, not quietly, making sure the waiter and the people nearby could hear. My ex wants me back. Give me at least one good reason why I should stay with you. I set down my fork and looked at Bree Reddan, my wife of 7 years, sitting there in her new dress that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The restaurant buzzed around us, couples on date nights, families celebrating birthdays, normal people having normal conversations. Not us, apparently. "And can you give me even one reason why I should stay with you?" I asked, keeping my voice level. The question hung in the air like smoke from a grease fire. Bree's perfectly glossed lips parted, then closed. Her green eyes, the ones I used to think were beautiful, darted around the room. She had expected me to beg, to list all the reasons she was wonderful, to compete for her like some desperate contestant on a reality show. Instead, I reached for my wallet. "Mason, that's what I thought." I counted out exactly half the bill plus tip, left the cash on the table, and stood up. "Enjoy your evening, Bree." I walked out of Chez Laurent without looking back, past the hostess, who pretended not to stare, past the valet who asked if I needed my car. I told him no thanks and kept walking. The October air in Dallas felt crisp against my face, a welcome change from the suffocating atmosphere inside. My phone buzzed before I reached my truck. A text from Bree. "Where are you going? We need to talk about this." I deleted it without responding. That night, I went home to our suburban house in Plano and did simple things, logical things. I canceled the vacation reservation to Cancun that was in my name. I logged into Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and changed all the passwords. I removed her from my phone plan and deleted her access to our shared Google Calendar. Then I packed every document that mattered: birth certificate, passport, insurance papers, bank statements, and put them in my truck. I work in IT security for a mid-sized firm downtown. My job is protecting digital assets, finding vulnerabilities, closing loopholes. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd missed the biggest security breach of all, the one happening in my own marriage. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. No drama, no lengthy explanations, just signatures, dates, and legal terminology that reduced 7 years to a stack of papers. I emailed copies to her parents in Austin and dropped another copy at the law office where she worked as a paralegal, making sure to put her full name on the envelope so the receptionist would announce it loud enough for her co-workers to hear. That same evening, I changed the locks. I boxed her clothes neatly, I'm not a monster, and stacked them by the front door. I left her wedding ring on top of the boxes, sitting there like a cherry on a sundae nobody wanted. She showed up at 9:30, crying, mascara streaked down her cheeks like tire marks on asphalt. Through the peephole, I could see her fumbling with her old keys, confused when they wouldn't turn. "Mason, please, open the door." It was a mistake. Jeremy disappeared the moment things got real. He just wanted to see if he could get me back. Jeremy. So that was the ex's name. I filed that information away. I opened the door just enough to slide the divorce papers toward her feet. "You already asked the question, Bree. This is my answer." "But I love you. I've always loved you. I was just confused." I closed the door before she finished her sentence. She pounded on it for 10 minutes, her voice rising from pleading to angry to desperate. The neighbor's lights started coming on. Mrs. Patterson from next door peeked through her curtains. Eventually, Bree's voice faded, replaced by the sound of her car starting and driving away. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and sat in my recliner, looking around the house that suddenly felt bigger and quieter than it had in months. No reality TV shows blaring from the kitchen, no constant chatter about her co-workers' drama, no passive-aggressive comments about how I never wanted to go out anymore. Just silence. My phone buzzed. Walt, my best friend since college, texting, "Heard through the grapevine that Bree's been crying at Starbucks all morning. You okay?" I typed back, "Never better. Want to grab a drink tomorrow?" "Hell yes, it's about time." Walt had never liked Bree. He'd been too polite to say it directly, but I caught his eye rolls when she complained about everything from the restaurant service to my choice of friends. He called her high maintenance, which was his diplomatic way of saying she was exhausting. I should have listened to him years ago. The next morning, I woke up without an alarm for the first time in months. No Bree shaking me awake because she couldn't find her earrings or because she needed me to move my truck so she could get out of the driveway. I made coffee in my favorite mug, the one she always said was too big, and sat on the back patio, watching the sunrise paint the sky orange and pink. My phone had 17 missed calls from Bree and 12 text messages ranging from apologetic to furious. I deleted them all without reading past the first few words. At work, I threw myself into a new project, upgrading the security system for a chain of fitness centers. The irony wasn't lost on me. While I was busy protecting other people's data, my own personal life had been hacked by someone I'd trusted completely. My colleague Jennifer stopped by my desk around lunch. "You look different today. Lighter, somehow." "Cleared out some unnecessary baggage," I said, not looking up from my screen. She laughed. "Good for you. Extra baggage drags you down every time." That afternoon, I got a call from Bree's mother, Sharon. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Mason, honey, Bree told me about your little spat. I'm sure you two can work this out. Marriage takes compromise." "It wasn't a spat, Sharon. She asked me for a reason to stay married, and when I asked her the same question, she couldn't answer. That tells me everything I need to know. But she's devastated. She made a mistake." "The mistake was mine. I should have done this years ago." I hung up before she could respond. By 5 o'clock, I was ready to leave the office when my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Mason, this is Jeremy Collins. I think we should talk." The ex. This ought to be interesting. "About what?" "About Bree. Look, I never meant for things to go this far. I was just testing the waters, you know? I didn't expect her to blow up her marriage over it." "She didn't blow up her marriage over you, Jeremy. She blew it up because she's selfish and immature. You were just the excuse she was looking for." "I feel terrible about this." "Don't. You did me a favor. I should probably thank you." "Mason, wait." I hung up and turned off my phone. That evening, Walt came over with a 6-pack of beer and a bag of barbecue from our favorite place on Lower Greenville. We sat on my back patio, eating brisket and drinking Shinerbach while he filled me in on all the gossip I'd missed. "So get this," he said, gesturing with a rib. "Bree's been telling everyone that you kicked her out over nothing. Says you've been controlling and jealous for years. Of course she has. But here's the thing, nobody's buying it. Jennifer from your office? Her sister works at that law firm where Bree works. Apparently Bree's been bragging about this Jeremy guy for weeks, showing off his pictures, talking about how successful he is, how he treats her like a queen." I took a long pull from my beer, and now he's ghosted her. Completely. Blocked her on everything. She's been calling him from different numbers, but he won't pick up. So she comes crawling back to reliable old Mason. Pretty much. Walt leaned back in his chair. "You know what the best part is? She actually thought you'd take her back. She told people you were too passive to go through with the divorce. That stung a little, but not as much as it would have a week ago." "Passive, right. Dude, you changed the locks and filed papers in 2 days. That's not passive, that's decisive." We finished our beers as the sun set behind the fence line. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt relaxed. No walking on eggshells, no wondering what mood Bree would be in when I got home, no listening to her complain about everything from the weather to the neighbors to my choice of breakfast cereal. "Thanks for coming over," I told Walt as he gathered up the empty bottles. "Anytime, brother. You did the right thing." After he left, I sat in the quiet house and made a list of things I wanted to do now that I was free. Travel somewhere other than the beach resorts Bree preferred, buy a motorcycle, Learn to cook something other than the 5 dishes she approved of. Maybe take that photography class I'd been putting off for 3 years. The possibilities felt endless. My phone buzzed with another text from Bree. I drove by the house. I saw Walt's truck. I guess you're already moving on. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, You moved on weeks ago. I'm just catching up. This time she didn't respond. 3 days after the divorce papers were served, I discovered Bree's secret social media account. It happened by accident. I was cleaning out our shared laptop, transferring files and clearing browser history, when I found a saved password for an Instagram account I'd never seen before. The username was Breezy Dallas, and the profile picture was her, but taken from an angle that showed more cleavage than her usual posts. Curiosity got the better of the cat, but satisfaction made it all worthwhile. I logged in. What I found made my stomach turn. Photos of her at restaurants I'd never been to, wearing clothes I'd never seen, pictures with a group of women I didn't recognize, all of them posing like they were auditioning for a reality show, and scattered throughout, comments from men whose names I didn't know, saying things that made it clear they knew my wife better than I thought. But the real gut punch came when I scrolled back to posts from 6 months ago. Pictures of her at some upscale gym called Elite Fitness, working out with a personal trainer named Kyle. The comments on these photos were different, more familiar, more intimate. Looking strong, beautiful, Kyle had written on one. Can't wait for our next session, Bree had replied, followed by a winking emoji. Their conversation continued in the comments, getting progressively more flirtatious. Other people joined in, making jokes that flew right over my head at the time, but now seemed obvious. Someone named Jessa commented, "Get it, girl," with a fire emoji. A woman named Tara added, "Some people are so lucky to have such dedicated trainers." I screenshotted everything. Then I did what I do best. I investigated. Kyle Jensen, owner of Elite Fitness on Preston Road. 33 years old, divorced, no kids. His own Instagram was public, full of shirtless photos and motivational quotes about living your best life and taking what you deserve. I found the gym's website and looked up their class schedules. Bree had been going to private training sessions every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 in the afternoon. The same time she told me she was working late at the law firm. My phone rang. Walt. "You sound weird," he said without preamble. "What's wrong?" "I found her secret Instagram account." "Oh man, how bad is it?" "Scale of 1 to 10? About a 15. Want me to come over?" "Yeah. Bring more beer." While I waited for Walt, I kept digging. I found Kyle's Facebook page, which led me to the gym's private group for members. It was a closed group, but I could see some of the posts in the preview, enough to know that this wasn't just about fitness. Walt arrived with a 12-pack and a grim expression. "Show me." I walked him through everything I'd found, the secret account, the trainer, the lies about working late. Walt's face got darker with each screenshot. "This Kyle guy," he said, studying one of the photos. "He looks like every douchebag who peaked in high school and never got over it. Probably drives a lifted truck with truck nuts hanging from the hitch. Definitely has a tribal tattoo somewhere." We spent an hour going through everything, building a timeline of Bree's deception. The lies started small, an extra hour at the gym here, a girls' night there. But they'd escalated over the past 3 months into full-blown alternative lifestyle. "Look at this," Walt said, pointing to a group photo from last weekend. "She told you she was at her sister's house, right?" "Right. Said they were having a family dinner. She's at some rooftop bar downtown with these women and this Kyle guy." In the photo, Bree was wearing a dress I'd never seen, laughing at something Kyle was whispering in her ear. Her hand was on his arm, and his hand was on her lower back. They looked like a couple. "I'm an idiot," I said. "No, you're not. You trusted your wife. That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage." All the signs were there. The new clothes, the sudden interest in fitness, Staying out later, being secretive with her phone. Hindsight's 20/20, brother. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I stared at the laptop screen, at the evidence of my wife's double life spread out in front of me. Part of me wanted to confront her, to demand explanations, to fight for a marriage that had been over longer than I'd realized. But a bigger part of me felt something else entirely. Relief. Nothing, I said finally. Nothing? She made her choice. I made mine. The papers are filed, the locks are changed, I'm done. Walt looked surprised. Really? You're not going to call her out on this? Expose her to her family, her coworkers? What's the point? It won't change anything. She is who she is. But even as I said it, I knew I wasn't being completely honest. There was a part of me that wanted revenge, not the dramatic, movie-style kind, but something more subtle, more fitting. I just hadn't figured out what that looked like yet. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hey, this is Jessa, Bree's friend. I think you should know that she's been saying some pretty awful things about you. Just thought you deserved a heads up. I showed the text to Walt. He raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Think it's legit? Only one way to find out. I called the number. A woman answered on the second ring. Mason? Oh, good, I was hoping you'd call. This is awkward, but I felt like someone should tell you the truth. I'm listening. Bree's been telling everyone that you're controlling and paranoid. She says you've been tracking her phone and going through her things. She's painting herself as the victim of an abusive marriage. I felt my jaw clench. And you don't believe that? Honey, I've seen how she really is. The lying, the sneaking around, the way she talks about you when you're not there. What she did at that restaurant was cruel, and everyone knows it. Why are you telling me this? Because my ex-husband did the same thing to me. Cheated, lied, then tried to make me look like the crazy one when I caught him. It's not right. I thanked Jessa and hung up. Walt was watching me with interest. So she's trying to control the narrative, he said. Apparently. You know what this means, right? What? She's scared. If she wasn't, she wouldn't need to lie about what happened. She knows she screwed up, and now she's trying to save face. That night, after Walt left, I sat in my home office and thought about what Jessa had told me. Bree was out there, probably at some bar or restaurant, telling anyone who would listen that I was the problem, that I was controlling, jealous, abusive even. The old Mason would have been devastated by this. Would have called her, demanded she tell people the truth, maybe even considered taking her back just to stop the rumors. But the old Mason had been married to someone who didn't exist. The real Bree was a stranger who had been living in my house, spending my money, and lying to my face for months. The new Mason was someone different entirely. I opened my laptop and started typing. Not an angry email or a social media post, but a simple document. A timeline of everything I'd discovered, complete with screenshots and dates. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I wanted everything documented, just in case. My phone rang. Bree. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mason, we need to talk. No, we don't. People are telling me you've been going through my private accounts. That's a violation of my privacy. Your private accounts that you accessed from our shared laptop? The one I pay for, on the internet connection I pay for? That's not the point. Actually, that's exactly the point. You want privacy? You've got it. You want your own laptop and your own internet? Get a job that pays for it. I have a job. Part-time paralegal work doesn't count as a career, Bree. It's a hobby that happens to come with a small paycheck. The line went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder. You've changed. Yeah, I have. I stopped being a doormat. This isn't you, Mason. You're being influenced by Walt and those bitter divorced guys at your work. Or maybe this is who I've always been, and you just never bothered to notice. I hung up before she could respond. For the first time since this whole mess started, I smiled. I decided to see Kyle Jensen's operation for myself. Elite fitness, was exactly what I'd expected. All chrome and mirrors and motivational posters featuring people who looked like they'd never eaten a carbohydrate in their lives. The kind of place where the monthly membership cost more than most people's car payments. I walked in, wearing my most generic workout clothes, and approached the front desk. The receptionist was a 20-something blonde who looked like she'd stepped out of a fitness magazine. "Hi, welcome to Elite. Are you interested in a membership?" "Just checking the place out. Friend of mine recommended it. Bree Reddan?" The girl's expression shifted slightly. "Oh, Bree. Yeah, she's been going through a lot lately." Interesting. Even the gym staff knew about Bree's drama. "I'm thinking about personal training. She mentioned someone named Kyle." "Kyle's amazing. He's actually right over there if you want to meet him." She pointed toward the free weights area where a guy who looked exactly like his photos was spotting a woman doing bench presses. Tribal tattoo on his left shoulder. Called it. I walked over and waited for him to finish with his client. Up close, Kyle Jensen was shorter than I'd expected, maybe 5'8", with the kind of artificially perfect physique that screamed supplements and spray tan. He had the confident swagger of someone who'd never been challenged on anything in his life. "You must be Kyle," I said, extending my hand. "Mason Reddan." The name didn't register at first. He shook my hand with the overly firm grip of someone trying to prove something. "Nice to meet you, Mason. Looking to get in shape?" "Something like that. My wife Bree recommended you." Now the name clicked. I watched the color drain from his face as he realized who I was. "Bree, yeah, great client, very dedicated." "So I've heard. She's been spending a lot of time here lately." Kyle's eyes darted around the gym like he was looking for an escape route. "Well, fitness is a journey, you know? Takes commitment." "Oh, she's definitely committed. To something." The silence stretched between us. Kyle was trying to figure out how much I knew, and I was enjoying watching him squirm. "Listen," he said finally, "if there's been some kind of misunderstanding—" "No misunderstanding. I know exactly what's been going on." "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." "Then you should have thought about that before you started training my wife in more than just fitness." Kyle's jaw tightened. The confident facade was cracking. "I think you should leave." "This is a public business. I'm a potential customer. Unless you're refusing service?" A few other gym members had started to notice our conversation. Kyle was aware of the audience, which made him even more uncomfortable. "Fine. What do you want?" "I want to understand what kind of man goes after another man's wife. Help me out here, Kyle. What's the appeal?" "I didn't go after anyone. These things just happen." "These things, right. Like gravity. Just a natural force you couldn't control." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly. You're a predator who targets married women because they're easier than single ones. Less expectations, more desperation." Kyle took a step closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. Unfortunately for him, I'd grown up with 3 older brothers and wasn't easily intimidated. "You need to back off," he said. "Or what? You'll steal my wife? Too late, buddy. Already happened." I said back off. And I said these things just happen. I smiled and walked away, leaving Kyle standing there with a gym full of people staring at him. Mission accomplished. On my way out, the receptionist stopped me. "Excuse me." I couldn't help but overhear. "Are you really Bree's husband?" "Soon-to-be ex-husband. Why?" She glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned closer. "She's been telling everyone that her husband left her for no reason, that he was controlling and jealous." "And what do you think?" "I think she's been coming here with Kyle after hours when the gym is supposed to be closed. I think she's been lying to a lot of people." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't like liars, and because Kyle's been promising me a promotion for 6 months that never seems to materialize. Funny how that works when you don't sleep with the boss." I thanked her and left, feeling better about the encounter than I probably should have. Kyle wasn't the smooth operator he pretended to be. He was just another insecure guy who used his position to take advantage of vulnerable women. The irony was that Bree wasn't even vulnerable. She was just selfish. That evening, I met Walt at our usual bar on Lower Greenville. I told him about my visit to Elite Fitness, and he laughed until beer came out of his nose. You actually said, these things just happened to his face? His own words, thrown right back at him. I bet he loved that. He looked like he wanted to hit me. Why didn't he? Because he's a coward. Guys like Kyle are tough when they're sneaking around behind someone's back, but they fold when confronted directly. Walt raised his beer. To confronting cowards directly. I'll drink to that. We were on our second round when my phone rang. Bree. Don't answer it, Walt said. I'm curious what she has to say. I picked up. What the hell is wrong with you? Bree's voice was shrill, angry. Kyle called me. He said you went to his gym and threatened him. I didn't threaten anyone. I just introduced myself. You had no right to do that. I had every right. I'm still your husband for another few weeks. You're embarrassing yourself, Mason. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior I was talking about. Controlling would be trying to stop you. I'm not stopping anything. I'm just making sure everyone knows what's really going on. Nothing is going on. Right. That's why you had a secret Instagram account with pictures of you and Kyle looking very cozy. The line went quiet. You went through my private accounts. Your accounts that were saved on our shared computer, the computer I bought in the house I pay for. You're pathetic. Maybe. But I'm not a cheater. I hung up and turned off my phone. Feel better? Walt asked. Actually, yeah, I do. Good. Because this is just the beginning. What do you mean? Guys like Kyle don't give up easily, and women like Bree don't take rejection well. They're going to try something. Like what? I don't know yet. But they're not just going to fade away quietly. People like that always have to have the last word. Walt was right, of course. I'd poked the bear, and now I needed to be ready for the bear to poke back. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own life. Whatever came next, I'd handle it. The old Mason would have been scared of confrontation, would have tried to smooth things over and keep the peace. The new Mason was just getting started. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Word had gotten out. Apparently, Kyle had told his version of our gym encounter to anyone who would listen, and his version painted me as an unhinged, jealous husband who'd threatened him in front of a gym full of witnesses. Bree had shared this story with her friends, who'd shared it with their friends, and now half of North Dallas thought I was some kind of dangerous stalker. The texts ranged from concerned friends asking if I was okay to angry messages from people I barely knew telling me to leave Bree and Kyle alone. A few were from Bree herself, alternating between fury and fake concern. People are worried about you, one read. This isn't healthy behavior. Another. Kyle is considering a restraining order. Is that really what you want? And my personal favorite. I still care about you, Mason. Please get help. I deleted them all and made coffee. My phone rang. Jennifer from work. Hey, are you okay? I'm hearing some crazy stories. Define crazy. That you confronted Bree's trainer at his gym and made threats. I introduced myself and had a conversation. No threats were made. That's not what people are saying. People say a lot of things. Doesn't make them true. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Mason, I know we're just work friends, but I feel like I should tell you something. I'm listening. My sister Amy works at that law firm where Bree works. She says Bree's been telling everyone there that you've been abusive for years, that she's been afraid to leave because you threatened her. I felt my jaw clench. And people believe that? Some do. Amy doesn't. She says Bree's stories don't add up, and she's been way too happy lately for someone who's supposedly been living in fear. What do you mean? New clothes, expensive manicures, going out every night? Amy says she's been bragging about her new boyfriend to anyone who'll listen, while simultaneously claiming I'm abusive. Exactly. Amy thinks she's trying to build a case for the divorce, make you look bad so she can get more in the settlement. After Jennifer hung up, I sat in my kitchen and tried to process what was happening. Bree wasn't just moving on with Kyle. She was actively trying to destroy my reputation to cover her own tracks. The old Mason would have panicked, would have started calling everyone he knew to defend himself. But the old Mason had been a pushover who let people walk all over him. The new Mason had a different approach. I opened my laptop and logged into Facebook. I rarely used social media, but I had accounts everywhere for work purposes. I started with Bree's main profile, the one I'd known about throughout our marriage. It was a masterclass in selective editing. Photos of us together had been deleted or hidden. Her relationship status had been changed from married to it's complicated. Her recent posts were all about new beginnings and finding yourself and not settling for less than you deserve. The comments were telling. Her friends were being supportive, but in the way that suggested they knew more than they were saying. Lots of, "You deserve better," and "proud of you for being strong," and "some people never change." I screenshotted everything. Then I did something I'd never done before. I created a group message and added everyone I could think of: friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, people who knew both Bree and me. I typed, "Hi everyone. I know there are a lot of stories going around about Bree and me, and I wanted you to hear the truth from me directly." Then I told the whole story. The dinner, the question, my response, the divorce papers, the secret Instagram account, the trainer. I included screenshots of the most damning evidence, the flirtatious comments, the photos from places she'd lied about being, the timeline that proved she'd been living a double life for months. I ended with, "I'm not angry. I'm not trying to get revenge. I just want people to know the truth. Bree made her choice, and I made mine. I wish her well, but I won't let her rewrite history to make herself feel better about what she did." I hit send before I could change my mind. The responses started immediately. Walt. "About time you told your side." My brother Mike. "Holy crap, dude. I had no idea." My sister-in-law. "We never liked her anyway." Jennifer. "This explains so much." Even some of Bree's friends started reaching out privately. Jessa, who'd called me earlier, sent a long message about how she'd tried to talk Bree out of the affair, but Bree had been convinced that she deserved better than what she had. "She kept saying you were boring and predictable," Jessa wrote. "Like those were bad things. I told her that stability was a gift, not a curse, but she wouldn't listen." My phone rang. Bree, of course. "How dare you?" she screamed before I could even say hello. "How dare you put my private business on social media? Your private business stopped being private when you made it public at that restaurant. You had no right to share those screenshots. They're from accounts you accessed on my computer. Legally, I have every right. You're trying to destroy my reputation. I'm telling the truth. If that destroys your reputation, maybe you should have thought about that before you started lying to everyone. Kyle's furious. He says you've made him look like a homewrecker. If the shoe fits. This is harassment. No, this is consequences, something you've never had to deal with before." She hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone rang again. Unknown number. "Mason, this is Kyle. We need to talk." "No, we don't. You've crossed a line, man. Posting private photos, making accusations." "What accusations? I posted facts. If you don't like how the facts make you look, maybe you should make better choices. I could sue you for defamation. With what money? And for what damages? Everything I posted is true and I can prove it. You're making this personal. You made it personal when you started sleeping with my wife." "I never—" "Save it, Kyle. We both know what happened. The only question is whether you want to keep digging this hole deeper or just walk away." He hung up. Walt came over that evening with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. "So," he said, settling into my couch with a container of lo mein, "how does it feel to finally fight back?" "Terrifying and liberating at the same time." "Good. That means you're doing it right." "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." "What do you mean?" "Bree's not going to just accept this. She's going to try something." "Let her try. You've got the truth on your side now. That's a pretty powerful weapon." We spent the evening going through the responses to my social media post. The support was overwhelming. People who'd known us as a couple were sharing their own stories about things they'd noticed but hadn't wanted to say anything about. Bree's behavior at parties, her constant complaints about me, the way she'd flirted with other men right in front of me. "You know what the best part is?" Walt said, scrolling through the comments. "She can't deny any of it. You've got screenshots, dates, proof. All she can do is try to spin it, and spinning doesn't work when people can see the evidence for themselves." He was right. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I had the upper hand. But Walt was also right about something else. Bree wasn't going to just accept defeat. I just had no idea how far she was willing to go to win. Bree's counterattack came 3 days later, and it was more vicious than I'd expected. I was at work when my boss, David, called me into his office. His expression was serious, which immediately put me on guard. "Mason, I need to ask you about something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." "Okay." "I got a call this morning from someone claiming to be your wife. She says you've been using company resources to stalk and harass her and her friends." I felt my stomach drop. "That's not true. She specifically mentioned that you've been accessing social media accounts and private information using our network and equipment." "I used my personal laptop on my home internet connection. Everything I did was on my own time, with my own resources." David studied my face. "She also said you've been unstable lately, angry, threatening. She's worried about her safety." "David, you've known me for 5 years. Have I ever been unstable or threatening?" "No, but people change when they're going through a divorce. I've seen it happen." I took a deep breath. "Would you like to see the evidence of what she's actually been doing?" "What kind of evidence?" I pulled out my phone and showed him some of the screenshots I'd gathered, the secret social media accounts, the photos with Kyle, the timeline of lies. David's expression changed as he scrolled through them. "This is your wife?" "Soon-to-be ex-wife. And she's claiming you're the one behaving inappropriately?" "Apparently." David handed my phone back. "Mason, I'm going to give you some advice. Document everything. Every call, every text, every interaction. People who are willing to lie to someone's employer are willing to lie about other things too." "You think she'll escalate?" "I think desperate people do desperate things." He was right to be concerned. When I got home that evening, I found my front yard had been decorated with toilet paper. Not the playful kind of prank that kids pull on Halloween, but the malicious kind meant to humiliate and intimidate. I was cleaning it up when Mrs. Patterson came over from next door. "I'm so sorry, Mason. I saw who did it, but I was afraid to come out and stop them." "Who was it?" "Your wife and 2 other women. They were laughing and taking pictures." Of course they were. This wasn't just vandalism, it was content creation for social media. "What time did this happen?" "Around noon, right after the mailman came." I thanked Mrs. Patterson and finished cleaning up the mess. Then I checked my security cameras. I'd installed them after changing the locks, and they'd captured everything. The footage was perfect. Bree, along with 2 women I recognized from her Instagram photos, throwing toilet paper over my trees and bushes. They were indeed taking photos and videos, probably for social media posts about how they were getting back at the controlling ex. I saved the footage to multiple locations and called the police to file a report. The officer who came out was professional but not particularly interested. It's toilet paper, he said. Technically vandalism, but pretty minor stuff. I'm more concerned about the pattern of harassment. Has she threatened you directly? She called my employer with false accusations. That's not criminal unless she files a false police report. I thanked the officer and sent him on his way. The law might not be much help, but I had other options. I posted the security footage on social media with a simple caption. Some people handle rejection better than others. The response was immediate and overwhelmingly supportive. People were shocked to see Bree's true character on display. Several commented that they'd never seen anything so petty and childish. More importantly, the footage contradicted the narrative Bree had been pushing about being afraid of me. Women who are genuinely afraid of their ex-husbands don't show up at their houses to commit acts of vandalism while laughing and taking selfies. My phone started ringing almost immediately. First Walt, then my brother, then several friends who'd seen the video. "Dude," Walt said, "she just handed you a gift. She's completely destroyed her own credibility. I almost feel bad for her." "Don't. She did this to herself." An hour later, my phone rang again. "Jessa. Mason, I need to apologize. I had no idea Bree was going to do something like this." "You were there?" "No, God, no, I would have stopped her. But Tara and Amanda went with her. They thought it was funny." "And now?" "Now they're freaking out because the video is everywhere. Tara's husband saw it and he's furious. Says she's too old to be acting like a high school mean girl." "What about Bree?" "She's not handling it well. She's saying the cameras are illegal, that you're violating her privacy." "Cameras on my own property? Recording my own front yard?" "I know it doesn't make sense. She's not thinking clearly right now." That was an understatement. Over the next few hours, Bree sent me a series of increasingly unhinged text messages demanding that I take down the video. She threatened to sue me, to call the police, to have me arrested for invasion of privacy. I responded to exactly one of them. "The cameras are legal, the footage is from my property, and you're the one who chose to commit vandalism. Maybe think before you act next time." Then I blocked her number. But Bree wasn't done. She created a new Instagram account and started posting her own version of events. According to her story, I had secretly installed cameras to spy on her, and the toilet paper incident was just her reclaiming her power after months of surveillance and control. The problem with her story was that anyone could see the timestamp on my security footage. The cameras had been installed after she moved out, not before. Her narrative didn't match the facts. Even worse for her, some of her own friends started pushing back in the comments. People who knew us both were calling out her lies, and the comment threads became brutal. "This isn't the Bree I thought I knew," one person wrote. "You're embarrassing yourself," wrote another. "Just stop. You're making it worse," added a third. By the end of the week, Bree had deleted the new Instagram account entirely. Kyle, meanwhile, had gone completely silent. No social media posts, no public statements, nothing. According to Jennifer's sister Amy, word around the law firm was that Kyle had told Bree he needed space to think about their relationship. Translation: he was cutting and running before the situation got any worse. "Rats fleeing a sinking ship," Walt observed when I told him. "Can't say I blame him. This has gotten way more complicated than a simple affair. That's what happens when you mess with the wrong person. I'm not sure I'm the wrong person. I think Bree is just really bad at being sneaky." Same difference. Walt was right. Bree had overplayed her hand at every turn. The restaurant scene, the lies to my employer, the vandalism, the social media meltdown, each move had made her look worse while making me look more reasonable. I was starting to think this whole nightmare might actually be over. I should have known better. The real fireworks were still to come. The call came on a Friday evening while I was grilling burgers on my back patio. Unknown number, but I'd stopped screening calls since blocking Bree. "Mason Reddan?" The voice was professional, official. "Speaking." This is Detective Williams with the Plano Police Department. I need to speak with you about an incident report filed by your wife. My stomach dropped. What kind of incident report? She's alleging harassment, stalking, and threatening behavior. Can you come down to the station? Am I under arrest? No, sir. We just need to get your side of the story. I turned off the grill and grabbed my keys. I'll be right there. The police station was busy for a Friday evening. Detective Williams was a middle-aged black woman with tired eyes and the patient demeanor of someone who'd heard every story twice. Mr. Reddan, your wife filed a report claiming you've been stalking her, harassing her friends, and making threats against her and her boyfriend. That's not true. She says you showed up at her boyfriend's workplace and threatened him. I introduced myself and had a conversation. No threats were made. She also says you've been using surveillance equipment to monitor her activities. I have security cameras on my own property. She vandalized my yard and the cameras recorded it. Detective Williams consulted her notes. She mentioned that incident, says you posted the footage online to humiliate her. I posted it because it proved she was lying about being afraid of me. Women who are genuinely afraid don't show up at their ex's house to commit crimes while laughing and taking selfies. Can I see this footage? I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. She watched it twice, her expression neutral. Mr. Reddan, I'm going to be straight with you. This complaint feels more like a domestic dispute than a criminal matter. What do you mean? Your wife seems upset about the divorce and is trying to use the legal system to get back at you. We see it all the time. So what happens now? I'm going to file a report documenting both sides of the story. If she wants to pursue charges, she'll need to provide evidence of actual threats or harassment. Social media posts and security footage from your own property don't qualify. I thanked Detective Williams and left the station feeling drained. Bree had actually tried to have me arrested. The woman I'd been married to for 7 years had looked a police officer in the eye and lied about me being a threat to her safety. My phone buzzed with a text from Walt. Heard through the grapevine that Bree's at Murphy's Pub with Kyle and her crew. Thought you should know. Murphy's Pub was our old hangout, the place where Bree and I had gone for trivia nights and birthday celebrations. She was probably there celebrating what she thought was her victory over me. I drove home and poured myself a large bourbon. Then I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I looked at Bree's main Facebook page. She'd posted a photo from Murphy's Pub with the caption, "Surrounded by people who actually care about me. New chapter, new life, no regrets." The comments were a mix of support from her remaining friends and criticism from people who knew the real story. But what caught my attention was Kyle's comment. "You deserve the world, beautiful." So he hadn't abandoned her after all. They were still together, still playing the happy couple. I was about to close the browser when I noticed something odd. One of the people tagged in the photo was someone I didn't recognize, a man named Derek Hoffman. I clicked on his profile. Derek was a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but a divorce attorney who specialized in high-conflict separations and protecting clients from abusive spouses. The pieces clicked into place. The false police report wasn't just about revenge. It was about building a case for the divorce. Bree was trying to establish a pattern of harassment and abuse that would justify a larger settlement. I screenshotted everything and sent it to my own divorce attorney, along with a summary of the evening's events. He called me back within an hour. "Mason, this is actually good news for you." "How is my wife trying to have me arrested good news?" "Because she's overreached, filing false police reports, attempting to establish a fraudulent pattern of abuse. These things can backfire spectacularly in divorce proceedings." "What do you mean?" "I mean, we can use this to argue that she's acting in bad faith. Courts don't like it when people try to weaponize the legal system for personal gain." "So, what's our next move?" "We document everything and wait. Let her keep digging her own grave." I hung up feeling better than I had all evening. Bree thought she was being clever, but she was actually destroying her own case. The next morning, I woke up to find that Bree had tagged me in a Facebook post. It was a long, rambling essay about surviving emotional abuse and finding the courage to speak your truth. She'd painted me as a controlling, manipulative husband who'd isolated her from her friends and made her feel worthless. The post had dozens of comments, mostly from people I didn't know offering support and encouragement. But scattered throughout were comments from people who knew us both, calling out the inconsistencies in her story. My brother Mike had commented, "This is complete fiction. Mason's the most laid-back guy I know." Jennifer from work added, "I've worked with Mason for 5 years. This doesn't sound like him at all." Even some of Bree's own family members were pushing back. Her cousin Lisa wrote, "Bree, this is getting out of hand. We all know what really happened." I didn't respond to the post or engage with any of the comments. I just screenshotted everything and added it to my growing file of evidence. That afternoon, Walt came over with beer and a grim expression. "We need to talk," he said. "About what?" "About how far you're willing to let this go." "What do you mean?" "Bree's not going to stop. She's going to keep escalating until something really bad happens." "Like what?" "Like she files more false reports. Like she shows up here with Kyle and things get physical. Like she does something that can't be undone." I thought about that. Walt was right. Bree had already shown she was willing to lie to the police. What would she try next? "So, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you end this before she does." "How?" Walt smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. "By giving her exactly what she wants." "Which is?" "A public confrontation, a chance to play the victim in front of an audience." "That sounds like a terrible idea." "It would be, if you weren't ready for it. But you are. You've got evidence, witnesses, documentation of everything she's done. Let her make her play, then destroy her with facts." I considered this. Part of me wanted to just wait for the divorce to be finalized and move on with my life. But another part of me, the part that was tired of being lied about and manipulated, wanted to end this on my terms. "What did you have in mind?" Walt's smile got wider. "Murphy's Pub. Tomorrow night. Trivia night. She'll be there with Kyle and her crew celebrating their victory over you. And you show up. Alone, calm, reasonable. When she inevitably makes a scene, you let her. Then you calmly present the facts to everyone who's watching. That's a huge risk. So is doing nothing. At least this way, you control the narrative." I thought about it for the rest of the evening. Walt's plan was risky, but it had merit. Bree had been controlling the story for weeks, painting herself as the victim and me as the villain. Maybe it was time to set the record straight in front of people who knew us both. The next evening, I put on my best shirt and drove to Murphy's Pub. It was time to end this. Murphy's Pub on a Sunday night was exactly what I'd expected. Crowded, loud, and full of people I'd known for years. Trivia night had been a tradition for Bree and me, back when we were happy. Or at least back when I thought we were happy. I spotted them immediately. Bree, Kyle, and about 6 other people crowded around 2 tables near the back. They were loud, laughing, clearly several drinks into their evening. Bree was wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Red, tight, expensive looking. Kyle had his arm around her chair in a possessive gesture that probably looked romantic to him, but just looked insecure to me. I ordered a beer at the bar and found an empty table with a clear view of their group. I wasn't hiding, but I wasn't announcing my presence either. I wanted to see how this played out naturally. It didn't take long. Tara spotted me first. She whispered something to Bree, who turned around and saw me sitting there. Her face went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, fear, then something that looked almost like excitement. She wanted this confrontation. Walt had been right about that. I raised my beer in a casual greeting and went back to watching the trivia host set up his equipment. "Act like you belong here, because you do." Bree said something to Kyle, who turned to look at me. Even from across the room, I could see his jaw tighten. He started to stand up, but Bree put a hand on his arm and shook her head. Smart move. A public fight would make them look bad. Not me. The trivia started, and I joined a table of acquaintances from the neighborhood. We were doing well. I'd always been good at the random knowledge questions, and I was actually enjoying myself. This was what my life could be like without the constant drama and manipulation. During the break between rounds, Bree made her move. She walked over to my table, drink in hand, with Kyle trailing behind her like an uncertain bodyguard. "Mason," she said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "What are you doing here?" "Same thing I've been doing here every Sunday for the past 3 years, trivia night." "This is harassment. You're following me." "I'm sitting in a public restaurant that I've been coming to longer than you've known Kyle existed." A few people at nearby tables were starting to pay attention. Bree was aware of the audience, and she was playing to it. "You need to leave," Kyle said, trying to sound authoritative. "Actually, I don't. This is a public place. I'm a paying customer, and I haven't bothered anyone." "You're bothering us," Bree said. "Then maybe you should leave." "I was here first." "I was here first 3 years ago. You want to compare timestamps?" Bree's face was getting red. This wasn't going the way she'd planned. "You're pathetic," she said, her voice rising. "Showing up here, trying to ruin my night. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior I was talking about." "What controlling behavior? I'm sitting at a table across the room minding my own business. You posted private photos of me online. I posted security footage from my own property showing you committing vandalism. You called my work. You called my work with false accusations. You threatened Kyle. I introduced myself and had a conversation. If Kyle felt threatened by that, maybe he should examine why." The entire restaurant was watching now. The trivia host had stopped setting up and was staring at us along with everyone else. Bree realized she was losing the crowd. Her story wasn't holding up under scrutiny, especially with witnesses who knew both of us. "You know what?" she said, her voice getting shrill. "I'm glad this happened. I'm glad everyone gets to see what you're really like." "What am I really like, Bree?" "Petty. Vindictive. Unable to let go. I filed for divorce and moved on with my life. You're the one who called my employer, vandalized my property, and filed false police reports." "They weren't false." "Really? When did I threaten you?" "You—" She stopped, realizing she'd backed herself into a corner. "When did I stalk you?" "You followed me. I went to a gym to check it out and happened to meet your trainer. Once, in public, during business hours. You posted private photos. Security footage from my own cameras showing you committing crimes on my property." Kyle was looking increasingly uncomfortable. This wasn't the weak, passive Mason that Bree had described to him. This was someone who had facts, evidence, and the confidence to use them. "Come on, Bree," he said quietly. "Let's just go." But Bree was too far gone to stop. "No, I'm tired of him getting away with this. Everyone needs to know what he's really like." "Okay," I said calmly. "Let's do that." I pulled out my phone and opened the folder where I'd saved all the evidence. Screenshots, photos, videos, police reports. "This is Bree's secret Instagram account," I said, holding up the phone so nearby tables could see. "The one where she documented her affair while lying to me about working late." Bree lunged for my phone, but I pulled it back. "This is the security footage of her vandalizing my property while laughing and taking selfies. Not exactly the behavior of someone who's afraid for her safety." "Stop it!" Bree screamed. "This is the false police report she filed claiming I threatened her, followed by photos she posted on social media the same night showing her out partying with the man she claimed to be afraid of." Kyle grabbed Bree's arm. "We're leaving, now." "And this," I said, pulling up the final screenshot, "is her Facebook post from last night, celebrating her new relationship with the same man she's been having an affair with for months." The restaurant was silent. Even the kitchen staff had stopped working to watch the show. Bree was crying now, but they were tears of rage, not sadness. "You bastard! You planned this!" Her face was flushed, her hands trembling as she gestured wildly, drawing even more attention to herself. Conversations around the bar had stopped entirely. Every eye was on us now. On this moment, she clearly hadn't rehearsed going this way. The anger pouring out of her wasn't controlled. It was messy, raw, and desperate, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've lost control of the story. I plan to have a quiet drink and play trivia. You're the one who made it a public spectacle. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. That only seemed to make her angrier. She wanted chaos, wanted me to snap, wanted proof that I was the villain she'd been describing for months. I gave her none of it. "This isn't over," she said, her voice shaking. There it was, the threat, automatic and hollow, the kind people use when they have nothing left but noise. "Yes, it is. The divorce papers are filed, the evidence is documented, and everyone who matters knows the truth. It's over, Bree." For a second, she looked genuinely stunned, like she'd expected some opening, some crack she could still force her way through. There wasn't one. Kyle finally managed to drag her toward the exit, his grip firm now, embarrassment written all over his face. He murmured something to her I couldn't hear, but she wasn't listening. She was staring at me over his shoulder, eyes blazing, searching for one last way to hurt me. "You'll never find anyone else. You're boring and pathetic, and no woman will ever want you." The words echoed louder than she probably intended, hanging in the air long after the door slammed shut behind them. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the silence that followed was broken by slow clapping from the bar. One person, then another, then a few more. It spread organically, not mocking applause, but the kind of appreciation you give someone who's handled a difficult situation with grace under pressure. Someone let out a low whistle. Someone else nodded at me like they'd just seen a long overdue verdict delivered. I finished my beer and rejoined the trivia game. My hands were steady as I picked up the answer sheet. The questions suddenly felt easy, almost trivial compared to what had just happened. My team won that night, which seemed fitting, like the universe tying a neat little bow on the evening. As I was leaving, the bartender stopped me, resting his forearms on the counter. "Drinks are on the house next time you come in," he said. "Thanks, but that's not necessary." "Yeah, it is. We've all been watching this drama play out for weeks. It's nice to finally hear the truth." I nodded, unsure what to say to that, and headed out into the cool night air. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. The knot that had lived in my chest for so long was gone, replaced by something close to relief. Walt had been right. Sometimes you have to face the problem head on instead of trying to avoid it, even if that means doing it under bright lights with an audience. My phone had dozens of messages from people who'd witnessed the confrontation or heard about it secondhand. Old friends, acquaintances, even a couple of people I barely knew. All supportive, all expressing shock at how different the reality was from the story Bree had been telling. The best message came from Detective Williams. "Saw the video someone posted of tonight's incident. This supports everything you told me about the false report. Case closed on our end." Someone had recorded the whole thing and posted it online. Within hours, it had hundreds of views and dozens of comments, all supporting my version of events. People I'd never met were dissecting her accusations and pointing out the contradictions I'd lived with for months. Bree's credibility was completely destroyed. Her lies had finally caught up with her in the most public way possible. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Bree got exactly what the prenup specified, nothing beyond her personal belongings and half the value of her car. No dramatic courtroom showdown, no last-minute reversals, just paperwork and finality. Kyle broke up with her 3 days after the Murphy's Pub incident. According to Jessa, he said he couldn't handle the drama and needed to focus on his business. Translation: he'd realized that Bree came with more baggage than he was willing to carry. I never saw either of them again. 6 months later, I was sitting on my back patio, grilling burgers for a small group of friends, when Walt raised his beer in a toast. To Mason, he said, who finally learned that sometimes the best revenge is just telling the truth. I raised my own beer. To moving on. To moving on, everyone echoed. And for the first time in years, I actually meant it. The nightmare was over. My real life could finally begin.